So just imagine this. Elden Ring. A mix of two of the best games ever. How many times would you pay for that? Let's talk about it. Elden Ring's accessible and next-gen combat foreshadows what I think we can expect from Bethesda's Creation Engine 2 capabilities. From Software and Bethesda games are normally like comparing apples to pears. They both make amazing RPGs, but how they go about it are just different, like how a pear and apple are sweet and round, but the flavor is unique enough you're getting a separate product that satisfies their own taste. Elden Ring is the example of next-gen combat for Bethesda's Creation Engine 2. And here's why I think that. Elden Ring has a phenomenal amount of positive reviews, stating things like, the best game I've ever played. It's like sex, but better. And so on. The combat is rewarding, and defeating that boss that took you 2 to 3 attempts to figure out, and eventually conquer, gives you a sense of accomplishment. Just as Skyrim, and the likes of its predecessors, gives the same feeling of accomplishment in clearing out a dungeon, to find that last unique baddie at the end with the special magic item you were sent to procure. And in all test games. Also, in Elden Ring, you can be a strategist and take on enemies almost any way you want as long as you built your character around it. Whether it be stealth, head-to-head, magic, or some weird passive build that only does damage with objects or bleeding. Or if you just want to run around and put buckets on people's heads. With these games, the sky is the limit. Both share these traits, and both are AAA games. I mean, just look at the UI. They both share the red and blue and green RPG cornerstone for health and magicka and stamina. With the basics of leveling up and inputting points into your character to diversify its growth and its strengths. They're really so similar. Now that we've clearly found out how they are similar, let's talk about how they are different taste. Most obviously in test games, or the Elder Scrolls games, you can change the difficulty. From Novice, where you won't die, but mindlessly falling off a mountain, to Master, where you just get one hit sometimes. Even in mid to late game. The player controls the difficulty. Elden Ring has one difficulty to conquer. It offers more to the player in regards to combat, control, movement, and features. Toggling buttons during hold attacks to get out of them faster. Hitting enemies in weak spots or the head deals way more damage. Break an enemy's stance and have time to lay down that D. You know, damage. Skyrim, with the old creation engine, does have it where you can stagger an enemy attempting to block you. That's almost the entire complexity of that combat system. It's just cut and dry. Swing sword, hit damage. Shoot bow, hit damage. Fireball, hit damage. The combat is okay, but it lacks depth. The depth that Elden Ring offers. In an interview, Todd the God Howard himself said, "Every game will have some new suits of technology, so Elder Scrolls 6 will have some additions onto the Creation Engine 2 that game is going to require. These new systems are optimized for the vast worlds we love to create, with generational leaps, not just in graphics." Of course, every Bethesda fan is thinking right now, great, I can climb a ladder and take arrows to the knee. Big deal. Well, rumor has it we're still not going to be climbing ladders, but in regards to their combat, I do think we're going to see an improvement. Even in Starfield. Yeah, the one that releases this year in November. Just look back at the combat mechanics of Morrowind vs. Oblivion, The changes are spectacular. You went from a combat system that was basically a 3D number generator to if you landed a hit or not, whereas in Oblivion, as long as your character and weapon connected, it did damage. Now that doesn't sound like a huge change of combat, but it was. It changed it to a skill-based combat system. I could have low-level blade skill and still kill the highest level enemies using my smarts and skills. Unlike Morrowind, where if the enemy was too high leveled, you missed, or your spell failed. And all you could do was leave, level up, and come back. That combat change was huge. It completely changed the way you played, and how you would overcome tougher fights. Now, Oblivion to Skyrim, combat still changed massively. You could make a more well-rounded character. In Oblivion, skills like Blade and Blunt were all separate. Whereas in Skyrim, they gave you a more general one-handed or two-handed trees. The largest change of combat was the level of refinement you could make for your character. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. Now, bringing this information together, the Creation Engine 2 will bring that one thing TES and Bethesda games are truly lacking: fixing all the bugs. Okay, I'm joking. The bugs will stay, but the combat. I believe with this new engine, we are going to see that refined combat style that we are playing right now in Elden Ring, in Starfield, and more importantly, in TES 6. We are going to have a much more fluid and skill-based combat, as Bethesda clearly already knows how to make their games addictive and replayable, but they are just a bit behind for that combat complexity. So ask yourself, really, how many times would you buy Elden Ring? I bought Skyrim 3 times myself, twice for PC and once for Xbox. So I would say maybe 6 times for me. Leave in the comment how many times you think you would pay for Elden Ring. Thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. And I'll be working on more content to come.